This is Tinker Tribe Live with host Greg Doud.
All right. Well, how are we doing, everybody? My name is Greg. Go ahead. Yeah, guys. My name is Greg Doud. I run a channel called the Tinker Tribe, and I work with Rayo. He's asked if I had something to contribute to the radio program, and we talked about doing a show on here, and love what Rayo's doing with PAZNIA and everything that he's got going on with the Liberty Under Attack and everything that he stands for here. So good deal. We got good audio and everything. So that's the main focus. Let me tell you a little bit about who I am. I started off probably about 2017, 2018, and was really disenfranchised with the system. My life at the time, I was working for some a business doing government contracting, and my background is in engineering. At the time, I was working as a project manager over a networking project, and I was just wanting to do something different with my life and figure out how I could get out of the system as much as I possibly could at the time, and found a piece of land and had the dream of getting off grid and figuring out how I could live outside of the system as much as possible. So that's where the focus for this show and this stream is going to be about, is focusing on some of these projects that I've worked on over the years here. So that's what we're going to focus on. And I'm playing with some stuff in the background. I apologize. It's been a little while since I've operated OBS, and I'm trying to capture some of the video as well. So I'm playing around with a few things in the background here. So bear with me a little bit, but this is what I'm going to be talking about, is to cover projects, monthly projects that I've been working on, and with the hope of giving you some idea of how you can become more self-reliant and take that power within yourself. So today, what I have for you guys is a system that I built for my small cabin on some property that I own, and it is to power that cabin, but it also has capabilities of being able to bring it out on a work site that might be off grid, or to have as a backup power system. And it's portable on a hand cart. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And hopefully I can get you guys to understand enough to where you would feel more comfortable in taking on and tackling a project like this. So that's going to be the aim for the stream today here. So let me see. All right, I'm up and running now. But as you can see from my webcam here, this is the project that I'll be showcasing today. This is a EG4 3 kilowatt output, all in one. Does charge controlling for your battery and inverter, and also has a generator input to it. So I saw this DIY little system on Will Prowse's YouTube channel, and it looks like a pretty straightforward little project to get involved with. And the reason I chose to go with this model in particular is that there's a lot of different models out there that give you a portable solar backup, but they are somewhat limited on their input capabilities for the solar input. So I wanted to have a little bit more solar input, be able to handle more panels, and then a larger battery bank than some of the standard banks that come with the all-in-one portable systems, like there's Anchor and Blue Eddy and EcoFlow products on the market, and they're really nice plug-and-play systems that you can carry with you. You could put into a car, in the back of your car, if you wanted to go boondock somewhere and have some power. But they're pretty expensive, and they just didn't have like the battery storage capacity that I was looking for. So this system, it gets you more capabilities, and it saves you money while giving you a larger solar input and more storage capacity for the batteries. So the breakdown of this thing is real basic here from what you can see in the video here. It's basically just this EG4 system right here. You've got that wired into your battery, and that can be a battery of your choosing. I ended up going with a lithium iron phosphate battery, 100 amp hour, 48 volt, with an integrated BMS, and they make these for golf carts. So this system comes with the wiring you need to wire to your battery, as well as the breaker that you will need to wire into the positive side going into this system. And that protects the system from, if you need to do any maintenance on your battery, or if there's a problem somewhere with the current draw between the battery and the unit, it's not going to hurt anything. Right now, I have the AC output wired in with wired into using a 30 amp Romex into a plug for just a simple surge protector. So right now, let's just run in a couple little lights that I have out here on the deck that I'm on, and then I also have wired on here some 10 gauge PV wire, and this will just allow me to plug in any kind of panel that I have laying around. If I want to take this out somewhere and I want to throw a couple solar panels in there with me, I can have power out in the field somewhere if I need to go off grid and do a build project, or if I want to, just be able to boondock somewhere out in the woods or on some, public lands or something like that. I could throw this in the back of like something like an SUV or something like that, or my truck, and head on down the road and have some power with that solar input there to help me recharge the batteries. So as it stands right there, this is something that you could set up. This is just a Harbor Freight hand cart that I drilled some mounting points into on the top of the handles there, and just use some bolts and some some locking washers on there to secure it. And then I have some scrap plastic from where I work in my day job. I took some of that scrap plastic and just used some U-bolts to hold basically just a board where I could mount this breaker to. And that's pretty much the system. Like I said, the minimal amount of things that you need to purchase. The system here, this EG4 system itself, is under $1,000. I think it came in probably close to 700. And then the battery itself was about 700 as well. And that came with a small charger system that comes with the battery. So if I didn't have capability to collect solar, I could run a generator, and it'll power off. It'll charge off of the EG4 system itself, but as another backup, I have that as well to charge the with the correct charging profile on those batteries if I for some reason need to have a backup to keep that battery charged as well. So it's a pretty basic setup, but it has more capabilities than like I said, if you went out and you went to price some of these yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, yeah, behind me here is a solar trailer that I used to power my property off grid as well. So there's some modifications I need to do for that after somebody actually tried to steal it off the property a while ago, but that'll probably be for a future stream there. But yeah, that trailer is completely mobile, and it's set up to have enough power to. It almost has the same capabilities as this, which is but with a larger battery bank, and then it has more solar input over on that one. But it's pretty amazing where all the solar stuff has come in the past few years since I started playing around with it. And part of my story is I got to meet a friend of mine that was in my local area that was being attacked by the city for living in a trailer that was not zoned as a trailer park. And within the city limits, he was living in that trailer and living off grid, collecting his own rainwater, not bothering anybody, but the city gave him a problem for doing that, violating a zoning ordinance. And him and I became good friends. And I, stood behind him as he was going through a lot of that with the city. And he was able to get me started to just play around. He had some extra charge controllers and things like that, and got me some stuff to just set up my own little DIY stuff and start playing around with it. And then since then, we've done a few projects for people on their land to help them set up larger systems. So we've done that on the side and work together to get people set up, because, and it's not something that is really advertised, but if anybody needs help with that, that we can provide that service for people. And the overall idea of it really is, the more people that have some kind of backup power system, the more resilient we're going to be as a community overall. And that's the whole goal. Is, a lot of maybe people in the mainstream thinking is that we'll have all this power, and we take it for granted, really, that this power just flows to us all the time, and it's very abundant and cheap, and to a certain extent. But I think people are, seeing that those prices and utility prices are going up day by day. So it's something that needs to be more on the forefront of people's minds. Is not only will you be a little bit more resilient, you will be able to weather the storm and help out your communities when things go south with the electricity. So it's just an important thing as far as your own freedom to be able to look into and research and figure out and do some DIY projects to learn how these things work, so that you can, free yourself from the system as much as you can and become a more resilient person in total. So I guess a little bit about why I wanted to go this direction with this little hand cart system as well, is that running this little guy here, like I said, the cost all in versus something comparable with one of those portable solar units would get you up in about the $2,500 range. With all that said and done, like with just this alone, like this gets you in about the $1,400 range. And this is enough to, run some lights in your shop, be a backup for some freezers. Like I said, using it for your power needs for a small cabin. If you're going to do just some basic lighting, and maybe you're going to run some induction stoves, and you want to run some pumps and different things like that, some fans. This system would be great for that. And you can set it up in different configurations, but it's set up. But the only thing that I need to add is something for like a generator input to wire it in. And it's really easy to do that. It's just got a couple of screws for this face right here, and you've got another access in there for your AC in. For if you wanted to plug straight into grid power, it can use the grid energy to charge the battery system if you don't have solar. So that would be just another simple plug, like a plug to go out from this and just into some grid power, or be able to connect up to a generator. So so yeah, it wasn't too complicated of a project. In total, it took, once I had all the materials and everything that I needed, it took a total of probably about 3 hours to get everything on there and set up. So it's a pretty simple DIY project if you want to do just this. If you want to set up a small panel with a breaker box and outlets and run all that wiring, and then you have a long distance you need to go to get to where you want to mount your solar panels and do all that, that's another story. That takes a bit longer to do. And so I think Rayo, you said something just a second ago about powering a homestead off of all that stuff. It's it just depends on how you have your homestead set up. Like if you want to have abundant access to power all the time, then you're going to have to build a bigger system. But if you just need something, just some power, and you're using minimal equipment, minimal stuff for that, then some system like this would be a perfect setup, and just something to have as a backup power in your house if you're living in the suburbs, or you're living around in the city or something like that. Something like this would be great. Just set it up with the surge protector output, and be able to plug things in, charge devices, maybe power your TV. If you've got radio equipment and you're into radio communications, you can keep your radios charged up, all that, and you'd be able to be off to the races for your power needs. So like I said, it's not too complicated. There's minimal tools required for doing something like this. I did most of the project with these tools right here, just a wire stripper. I used these larger wire cutters for being able to cut through the battery cable. And these wire cutters are great for if you're gonna really get into solar projects. These wire shears here are better for larger wire. So if you're gonna be cutting into like 2 gauge, or like your main line wiring, it's like the 0 gauge stuff. You can use these guys for cutting into that. We found that if you're using aluminum wire, a lot of people will choose aluminum sometimes for their main lines coming in, because the copper wire is pretty expensive. But if you can choose copper, go with copper all day long, because for installs that aluminum wire is a lot more, it's a lot harder to get into the place where you want to wire into, and it's a lot harder just to install aluminum wire. And then you have problems with aluminum wire. It could back out on your terminals and stuff over time. So so go with copper every time if you can. Sometimes you might run into supply places that they might only have aluminum wire, and then you have to go with that. But if you can't, find the copper wire, and then just a Phillips screwdriver. I mean, literally, that and an MC4 crimping tool, which creates these MC4 connections here to the PV wire, and getting yourself a kit of these MC4 connections, which are very minimal in cost. I think I bought a pack of those. It was like $20 or something like that for all these MC4 connectors. And so yeah, just that MC4 crimping tool, and it's real easy to do that. You just strip some of this wire back, about a thumb's width, standard guy thumb. Guys and girls' thumbs are a little bit different sizes, but about an inch. Strip that back about an inch, and then you'll use your wire strippers to strip that back on the insulation material, and you'll have these MC4 metal connections, and you've got to match the right connector up with the right positive and negative MC4 connection. And then there's just a crimper tool that you squeeze, and we'll squeeze that down onto your conductor, onto the copper, and then you just assemble the rest of the MC4 connection. So that takes care of all that. And literally this screwdriver, this Phillips head screwdriver, for connecting all the wiring internally on this thing, this little screwdriver is set up. You just need a Phillips head to crimp down everything. All your terminals on the inside of this charge controller inverter, you just use a screwdriver. So minimal tools required. Other than that, I used a drill and a drill bit to attach my bolts to this cart. I used high-speed steel drill bits to do that attachment. Bought some U-bolts, which were, I think, like 1.25 inch U-bolts to go around the legs of the cart here to attach this plastic. And it already came with the mounting hardware for the breaker, and then I had to get a couple bolts and nuts to attach the mount for the breaker to the plastic. And so, I just tried to save money on this build and use some stuff that I had. Like I said, like this scrap plastic came from where I work that is just going to get thrown away, so I use it as a mounting piece. And yeah, pretty simple build. I have some more pictures that I sent to Rayo that show a little bit closer up on the system, and then also what we did to build the ground mount system for the solar panels out of the cabin. So if you have those pictures and you can pull them up, Rayo, then I can talk about some of those. And let me see if there's any other kind of specifics I can tell you. There's Okay, cool. That's great. So the panels themselves were bought through a deal with our friends in our Freedom Cell. We had Sean Mills in particular. If you look him up, he has a channel, Hack My Homestead. And I believe you can find his website is Hack My Homestead. And but he worked with our Freedom Cell group, and we went in together on a stack of panels, and he was able to get us a really nice deal on some solar panels. So we got some the ones that I'm using are 270 watt from Trina Solar, and I have for the cabin there are 6 panels out there that will run into this system over here, and those we were able to pick up for like 27 cents a watt. So that's the best deal that you can get is typically buying these solar panels in pallets, and yeah, that would be the way I would suggest anybody buy them. Like, unless you're gonna be installing probably about 10 kilowatts or more at your property, then you're not going to need a whole pallet of panels, and that a whole pallet is going to cost you probably like I think I bought 2 pallets in the past, and then used some for my project, and then for the solar trailer, and then sold the rest of them. So basically, the panels that I sold paid for those panels on the trailer. Is how it worked out. So you can do that. You can sell them like on Facebook Marketplace, or if you want to take the risk on buying a pallet of panels, you should be able to sell those eventually. Because people are going to have to pay for the freight to get them delivered, and then have to worry about all the possible damage in the shipping and things like that. So if you can have some panels on hand, then you can also most likely you're going to be able to sell those panels in your local area. But if you can't find any locally from somebody that like me that did that around your area through like Facebook Marketplace or something like that, then that's the way to go. And if you're gonna be looking to do that, there are some folks that I bought from in the past. You can look them up online. It's Santan Solar. If you look them up, they do a really good job at shipping you panels, and they're good quality panels. Some things that you want to consider though, if you do go that route, is to make sure when the freight delivery comes and they drop off those panels that you record any of that damage before you sign that ticket for the freight, and then contact the folks that sent you those panels before your freight guy leaves, or just don't sign that sheet of paper until you inspect all those panels and make sure that they're free of damage on the panels when they're shipped to you, because then you'll have some recourse. So take some pictures of the stuff and make sure that everything's not, like, the glass is not damaged and all that before that you sign that freight ticket for the delivery, and then you'll have some recourse. I've heard some stories of folks that have gone through this, and I haven't encountered that myself with my past freight delivery shipments. But I also didn't know this information, that some people have had issues with that, and then they had a hard time, being able to get refunded for some of the damaged panels. So if you're going to go on a bulk buy, keep that in mind when they deliver those panels. But by far, getting a pallet of panels is a good way to go, and it's going to save you the most cost. I think one of the reasons is that they're doing all these large solar farm projects, and then they're installing like newer, higher efficiency panels, and so they're turning over some of these solar panels, and they're coming off this big solar farms, and there's just people buying them up and storing them in warehouses. And I think these Santan solar guys are doing just that thing. They have a warehouse where they can store panels, and they're storing them, inventorying them, and then reselling them. So out at the property there, I've got about $1,600 1,600 watts of solar out at the property. And actually out on that trailer back there, it's a little bit more. It's probably, I think it's 1.98 kilowatts worth of solar out there. But when I say that, I'm not collecting that much, that entire amount of energy of 1.98 kilowatts off of those panels, mainly because of the orientation on the roof. They're sitting flat during the summertime. If I'm open to the sun, I can collect most of the energy that's on those panels. But I don't get as much of that in the wintertime, which is why I put another foldable solar panel on the side there. And also out at the property, I built the ground mount solar panels so that they can be adjusted for the seasons. So it was just built out of 2x4s, and to attach the panels to the 2x4s, I just cut some aluminum L channel so I could create mounting points for the panels to the treated lumber frame, and just using the self-tapping metal screws to go into the panels for their aluminum frames, and then just some exterior wood screws that go into the lumber, and works great for being able to attach to lumber. And you'll see a lot of ground mount systems that are put in the ground with steel mounting equipment, and a lot of those are quite expensive, but you can get away with it by doing ground mounts out of lumber. You can, if you're gonna make it for a long term, you can set a concrete pier and then put a bracket on top of that concrete pier, and then attach your wood to that, and make yourself like a base frame, and then attach hinges onto that. So that lumber's up off the ground, but it's anchored into the ground, into those concrete pillars in the ground, formed out of something like a sonotube that you can buy at any hardware store. And so yeah, you would set that in the ground, and then get a metal plate to stick in there in the concrete so that your lumber sits up off the ground, and you've got a pretty good ground mount solution for your panels. And if you build it out of treated lumber, then your costs are going to be less than going with something that's steel. Now, if you are in a really high wind area, if you're in a place that you're going to be just, you're going to get like tornado winds a lot, and you're just getting beat with high winds a lot of the time, then I would suggest you going with like a steel ground mount system. And I would always recommend somebody to go ground mount versus a roof mount. And there's several reasons to do that, because it's a lot easier to maintain the panels while they're on the ground. You're going to need to clean them every now and then so that you can get the most efficiency you need out of them. So that's a big reason. Just maintenance overall, and then you're going to help the panels to dissipate some of the heat, as you'll get more airflow around the panels in a ground mount type system versus mounting on your rooftop. So we've seen and had to repair in our local area somebody that did set up a rooftop mounted solar panels, and they give you like a couple inches of distance up off the roof tiles themselves. So in my opinion, there's not enough airflow there to help heat dissipate during the day. And the hotter those panels get, the less efficient they become. So that's why I would recommend, doing a ground mount. There are certain situations where you might need to. That might be your only option, is to mount to your roof. And then they do make some roof mounting options that give you a separation from the mount on your roof. It's doing the same thing basically as like kind of being on a hinge and being at an angle, but it gives them up off your roof tiles. So, if you're leaning in that direction, or if you have something that you might need to mount to a rooftop and that's your only option, I would look at something like that instead of a low profile, a more low profile roof mount. But it depends on your situation, right? You're in a high wind area, probably not ideal for that. So you might have to go with the more lower profile for that if you're in those worst case scenarios. So overall, so yeah, as far as a DIY project, it's not too difficult to implement something like this. I've had several projects under my belt doing this now, so I am more familiar with it. A good channel that on YouTube, if you guys want to go look him up, is the homestead consultant Ryan Steva. So he's another good resource for these different projects as well. Question: how do you engage the inverter? Switch or yeah. So right underneath the unit here is a switch. It's just a simple on and off switch. So I can just show you that real quick. So that just shuts down the inverter, and it's still connected to the battery. It does make some noise. So this entire time is probably not picking. It might not be picking up on the microphone, but that does make noise. So wherever you're going to put it, if you're going to put it inside your house, then you're going to want to put it in to a room with some ventilation so that it's not going to build up heat too badly. But, you know, if you don't want to hear it all the time, you're going to want to put it, you know, off in a corner somewhere, or maybe you have a laundry room or something like that, where you can put it, maybe somewhere where you do have your electrical panel, because you could wire in a transfer switch into your electrical panel and then be able to create a plug that plugs into your transfer switch that'll power a few circuits in your house. So you wouldn't have to do this whole setup on the top here, which is just a simple surge protector output, and you're running extension cables to power stuff. So if you wanted to do this at your house and you knew the circuit breaker fuses that you wanted to power, then you can wire in a transfer switch that will be able to power those fuses on your panel, and then create, you know, your plug would plug into, you know, an electrical outlet to plug into that, and then you would just flip on those circuits on that transfer switch to run into your main panel. Now, if you're going to do something like that, you're going to want to make sure that you have an isolated isolate your main breaker so that it's off while you're powering these other things on your solar. And it's just a little like lockout, little basic, little mechanical lockout. That's all it is. But in order to turn on your electrical stuff to make sure you're not going to send power back out, you need to make sure that main breaker is off from the grid power coming in if there's a grid down event. For when the lineman guys are out there working on power, you don't be sending power back out on the grid. What methods do you suggest for cleaning solar panels? Just straight up water and, you know, your, you know, just some either, you know, just a straight up cloth, or, you know, like you know, just some rags or stuff that you have around. If you want to, you know, have something that's on a pole for if you're going to be doing like a large array, you're going to want to have, you know, something to be able to scrub high up in the air. So you just go out and get one of those extender poles with a, you know, like a scrub pad on the end to be able to tackle that. And yeah, just basic water to clean that off. There can be what can happen with the panels if they've been sitting there for a while. They can get what is called soiling, and on the edges of the panels where the water has been running off and may have been pooling and collecting debris over time, you can get like an oxide polishing compound, and you can use a car polishing wheel or something to that effect, and put that compound on the area that may have been building up this debris, and it's kind of gotten embedded on the surface of the glass. And if that happens, you can get hot spots on your panels, which will kind of degrade them over time, and they'll weaken the cells in those areas because of these deposits on the surface of the panels. And you know, for a lot of panels, like, you can let them sit out there for a long time, especially like if they're it'll be a long time before you really have to clean them. Like, so, just get a cloth and wipe them down. Make sure the glass is free of the debris. Windex, and just clean them up. And if you have to, you can use like a polishing wheel or something like that, and some oxide compound to clean up any soiling or anything. If you're taking care of your panels and you're making sure that they're staying clean, and getting out there and just checking them, and making sure that there's not a ton of pollen and dirt and crud all over the surface of the glass periodically, then you should just be able to use some water and just scrub them down and use some Windex or something to clean them up. So, yeah, let's see. I will say that, these solar projects, it really helps to have some kind of generator backup with them. And while I'm out on the off-grid property, I do carry a small inverter generator with me, dual fuel, because you do get periods where, the sun might not be out for a few days, so you're going to need something else to help top off those batteries. So you're going to have to run a generator to recharge those batteries. So the one I use is I think it's a WEN. I think it's a WEN little dual fuel inverter generator. And you want to look for those inverter generators because they give a cleaner power output than just a standard non-inverter generator, because as the load goes on to that generator, it can cause the engine to, kind of change the output of that power, that could affect some of your electronics. And the inverter generator is the way to go in most cases. Now you are going to run it through a system like this, and I just like to be careful on the inputs, and I chose to do the inverter generator type system. Let's see. I just want to see if I can find that specific brand and see if I can recommend that to you guys real quick here. Yeah, WEN, if you look them up, that's the guy I used. Let's see. Something similar to this WEN 2200 kilowatt little portable inverter generator. I don't know if this comes up very well, but this little model right here, something similar to that, to carry with you. If you're going to be powering your homestead and you want, power reliably, even if there's, several cloudy days or something like that, and you're going to spend the money to install a solar power backup, or you're going to be reliant on that as your main primary energy off grid, you're going to want a backup. So you're going to want a generator, and I would say run a dual fuel and run it off propane. They make tri-fuel ones. The portable little ones that I have that have a nice little handle for carrying it somewhere. Yeah, I run them off of propane, just because, like, if you get busy in your life, everybody gets busy in their lives, and you might not remember to, drain out the gas in that thing or something. And, that gas will go bad over time. It can foul up things in the generator. So you don't have that same issue if you're running off propane. So that's why I like to go with propane. But yeah, I would say for, being more resilient, being able to have it to where you're not in fear for any kind of power needs, that that you can build something. It's totally, within your abilities. I would say for everybody to take on a little project like this, it's not too difficult. There's a lot of resources out there, and it's really fun. Actually, it's fun to play around with this stuff and figure it out for yourself. So I will say, I will put one more caveat before we go here on some of this. Like I said, we use a lithium iron phosphate battery, golf cart battery. Now this thing has its own internal battery management system. And if you look at like the diagram of this thing, it's got a bunch of smaller cells in it, and they just put a case around it. And they've got circuitry for their little BMS, which controls the how those individual cells get charges in there. If that BMS goes out, then you're kind of SOL. So the whole battery gets messed up, basically. And you have to take it apart, work with the company, have them hopefully ship you another one of their BMSs back with the system so that you could repair it, or call up the company you bought it from and make sure you have whatever they're using for their little BMS as a backup to it. Now they're selling a lot of these lithium iron phosphates with their internal BMSs already all in there. And that's one thing that I will caveat with all these lithium iron phosphate batteries. They give you a lot longer life versus a lead acid, but you are somewhat kind of constricted by the company you're buying it from and how they built their battery manager for those batteries. Now, opposing to that, you can buy the individual lithium iron phosphate. They look like brick batteries, and you can DIY your own battery bank and buy a separate BMS system that will allow you to do this stuff. and you would hook up to that BMS, which manages all those batteries and make sure that they're at the same voltage, so they're balanced. And that's how you charge these lithium iron phosphate cells. They do get many more cycles, and then you have much more usable power with the battery versus the lead acids. So once you discharge the lead acids about 20%, once they go beyond that 20%, you can damage the lead acid battery by discharging them more than that. So really, with a lead acid bank, you have to have a lot more storage because you have a lot less usable stored energy in there before you start damaging the batteries. And that's why you hear a lot of people running these lead acid batteries for about 5, maybe 5. They might get 5 years out of them. If they really baby them, they get like 10 years. Well, these batteries, if you take care of these, the cycles, you get like 20 years equivalent out of the lithium iron phosphate batteries. So they're more expensive. Some of them have come down in price, but you get more storage capacity and you get more cycles. So that's why I would say I would go lithium iron phosphate versus lead acids. Lead acids now a lot of them are coming from China now. So there are people that have different stocks across the United States, but they're a little bit harder to get your hands on than just being able to go down to your local store and pick up lead acid batteries. Now this will, any of these systems will run on lead acid batteries as well. So if that's all I had, I can string them together and get something to work. So, so that's the caveat. I'm going to put on all that, and then, yeah, folks, I will actually be working on getting all this into like a little PDF file. So, put in to a little PDF file that people can download and make it hopefully a little bit more digestible for you to understand how you can do stuff like this. So, yeah, if you guys want to follow me, and if you're listening to this, I do live streams on my channel. I have podcast guests on, and we discuss things about how we can become more self-reliant, more free as people. And I have kind of cataloged some of the projects in the past that I've done and thrown them up on there. Check it out at YouTube, the Tinker Tribe. And then I'm also on X as the Tinker Tribe. And then I'm on Rumble as well as the Tinker Tribe. So you can find me all there. And yeah, I hope this helps you guys. And yeah, let's all work towards building a better future and taking that into our own hands. So, and then thanks, Rayo, for offering this out to me. And I hope this is valuable for everybody out there that catches this. So appreciate it. And we'll catch you later.